Hello everyone, welcome to another Recro's webinar. Today we are having with us Nimit Bhargava, and this is Sana. I'm a community initiative lead at Recro. Recro is the developer-centric organization wherein we are trying to connect developers' aspiration to the right opportunity. We are working with high-growth startups like Swiggy, Udan, Dunzo, CureFit, and there are many others. Today we are having Nimit Bhargava with us. So Nimit is a full stack developer, full stack engineer in KEMURI Technologies, and this is a Japanese company. And he's also a co-organizer of VueBLR, which is again a meetup group. So he is basically working on Vue.js, and he's actively organizing meetup there in Vue Bangalore as well. So let's get started with this. Let me tell you more about the platform which we are in and regarding the topic. So the topic what we have today, that is JAMStack. So we will be knowing the what, why, and how the JAMStack is, and which is quite a new, I would say, a stack, not a stack. I think Nimit will be able to tell you more about it, what exactly it is. Regarding the session, so we will be going ahead with Nimit's presentation, and then a small question answer session from Nimit's end, and then we will be covering up whatever question you people have regarding the topic. And I think without doing further ado, we should get started. Over to you, Nimit.
Thanks, Anna, for the opportunity to me and to present Jamstack. I think it's not a usual topic that I think communities are discussing, so it's a great platform for me. Yeah, I think I saw some messages that I do look very different from my picture. Yeah, I agree. I think it's time for me to upload. Yeah,
I think
I
the
agree.
first question I had was the same.
Yeah, I think I have to update every picture now. All right, with this, let me start with the presentation. Just give me a second. I'll share my screen. So
Okay.
Jamstack, why, what, and how? So this kind of a talk will cover all these points, and after you leave this talk, you will be understanding all of these topics, and you will be able to kind of evangelize Jamstack as well in your companies, among your colleagues, among your friends. Yeah. So wait, what? Another tech stack? I think we are already convoluted with so many tech stacks already. Is it just another tech stack? Not really. It's not a tech stack at this point. So it's more of an web architecture at this point than a tech stack. It's not about any specific operating system or web servers or any language as well or data type of a database. Basically, it's not about technology. It's about a web architecture, how we have monoliths and microservices. It has evolved into something like that. So the Jamstack approach is very simple. So we start with something like we generate these cacheable assets, like which can be like HTML or these media files, which we cache them at some CDNs, and we use client-side JavaScript to call these to fetch these through APIs or through serverless functions for dynamic interactions. So this is actually Jamstack. So this kind of approach or this kind of like architecture comes under Jamstack. But actually, Jamstack started with something like JAM, which stands for JavaScript APIs and Markup, where your JavaScript can be anything, how you receive the data on the website or the web application, any dynamic interaction that happens on your website has to be done from JavaScript, and any data that you receive or you send should be through APIs. And the first thing that you send to the client should be just a markup. So if your web application follows these three things, it comes under Jamstack. But let me tell you more about it in the later slides. But let me tell you a fun fact. So as I said, that Jamstack has become more of an architecture, but it started as Jamstack as JavaScript API and markup, and later on, as people started adopting it, it started to outgrow this stack. It started to become more into something like a general approach to build web applications. So yeah, I think if now you know why it's called Jamstack, and it's not a stack anymore, it has become evolved into an architecture of itself. So yeah, I'm Nimit Bhargav. I wear many hats. I work as a full stack engineer as well as technical product manager. Apart from that, I call myself constant learner. I keep on learning new things. Like that's how I am. And recently, I'm trying to be an EDM producer, wannabe, not something that I've done anything significant, but just trying. So yeah, apart from me, I want to tell you what you can expect in this talk. You can expect about evolution of the web, how web has been evolved, what's really Jamstack is. I think we talked a little bit, but I'll go more deeper. Then we'll talk about what Jamstack actually brings on the table, and I'll late after that I'll give you examples of Jamstack which are around you, which I'm sure you might not be aware of. And I would also give you a short demo of how to create a basic Jamstack application. Yeah, so that you can get ideas to do it. And I would end with Jamstack best practices, like what you need to take care when you're building Jamstack. And I think one more topic would be what are the next steps you want to take from here. So after this talk, there might be some actionable items that you can pick up. So yeah, let's start. One more thing is why you should join, why you should attend this meeting. This thing is because you want to have a simpler developer experience. If you want to have a simpler developer experience in your team or in your projects, that's why you should attend. If you want better front-end performance, that's why. If you want to reduce cost, that's also one reason. Reduce cost of deployment or maintaining your infrastructure, application infrastructure, or even the development cost reduces when we use Jamstack. Or you want to just scale your front-end apps, and that's why. So now we know what we are going to cover and why you should attend. Let's start. So let me talk about evolution of the web. Let's take a step back and understand the current state of this web that we have in front of us. So let me talk about what's happening and why currently we are facing a problem, right? I hope you remember that previously internet was very simple. We just had a browser and we just had a server, and if you ask server some request, they will give you a response. This was usually some static data that you would get. So, for example, if you want to open like website back in 95, it might look like this. It's a very simple architecture, right? But then people started thinking, what else can we do with the web? I think web is more than just static. Web, you can actually start running programs into it. So people started creating languages like PHP, which would kind of which would run on your server, and yeah, kind of that. So now you would have like these kind of applications started coming up. Then slowly, people started thinking, what else can we do? How else can we make the web better? Or what else can we do with the web? They started including databases. They started having more dynamic applications where server would be PHP, which would handle the routes, and database would be just database that you can query and get some data. So this gave a lot of opportunities for the web, and we started having multiple applications, which we could see. You can see that there has been like communication going back and forth between these components. Then people found that these kind of applications can increase time and reduce the efficiency of the web. So they started putting these caches. So they started having server caches, they started having database caches, and these kind of started becoming more and more complex, as you can see. So yeah, so then people started having caching, and then we are expecting more faster access rate and better request and response timing. And then somebody suggested that why not, like having just one server, why not have like a, distributed network of your servers? And, if somebody is accessing your site from Bangalore, whatever the server is nearest to him, let that request go to that person, like from that. So then it started becoming more and more complex, as you can see. And it started to become more convoluted, not just from the architecture point, but also from the point of a developer. Because if we go back, developer had just one job to do. They just had to figure out client and server. And if there's a problem in the back end, they fix the server. If there's a problem in front end, they fix that. But now suddenly we can see there's just too many components, right? So for example, caching, we can think about cache invalidation. Let me come back to the next. Yeah, so there's so many points that now developer has to take care.
Oh,
So as I was talking about cache invalidation, you have in CDN you have to start versioning, server you have to monitoring, like in the programs you need to have security patches, you need to have programs that can scale up and down automatically. You need to have these consistent hashing and things like that. So all of this kind of started becoming more and more aggressive on web development, and slowly web development started becoming a place which is not easily done. I think everybody can agree that like if we start development maybe 10 years ago, it was very easy to start. There were almost no not 10 actually, maybe 15 or 20 years ago, it was very easy to start. People would just write HTML code and that would run, right? But then slowly, this architecture was adapted and progressively adapted that created this more of a place where developer is now very overwhelmed with these technologies. And if you're a web developer, you need to know these things. Like that's there. But does a developer really need to do that? Or does his work really need to do that? Like if you think from a customer point, customer needs an e-commerce site, then for them, developers' main focus should be how easily I can create those functionalities, right? How easily I can add to cart, how easily it can show up to the page, and things like that. But talking about cache invalidation or these things came extra with the development, and which had to be done because there was no such kind of infrastructure or somebody to handle. So that puts me back into why we are here. So let me just summarize this thing into more specific diagram. I think we all agree that evolution of web, like Unix servers were very simple. Like we started with that, just client server interaction, and that's it. Then I think what most of the web that we are using currently is will be termed as legacy very soon. So where you have client, web server, app server, and database, this is already becoming legacy. So if you're working in such kind of application, it's kind of becoming already legacy. And now we are moving towards more of a modern web, which is now. So now your client actually interacts with always CDN, and and it has these microservices that are running. So these can be the application microservice or third party microservices, right? That brings me back to what is Jamstack. So I think we started thinking about what Jamstack is. So anything that all the dynamic functionalities that are handled by JavaScript, and any interaction from server side to the client side happens over APIs. We need to make sure that these should be HTTPS. And the markup. So when your website is served for the first time, it should be just static HTML. So if your website follow these three things, then your website is a Jamstack. Note here that Jamstack is it's a web architecture, so it's not related to any specific framework. Like it's not related to Vue.js or React.js. It's not related to that. Anything that can be achieved that falls under Jamstack. To give you more visual, I always like to have visual interaction or visual understanding. So I kind of create these things. Sometimes visual have more impact. So as I said, that JavaScript should have all the reactivity. APIs should be the only place to receive your data source and the user interactions. And yeah, and your markup. So markup should be like the basic content that you send, and then it kind of build ups on that. Let me tell you just one more point. This is the architecture that we currently follow. So one thing when we dive into Jamstack is understanding of what are static sites and what are dynamic sites. So I think most of us agree or they work with dynamic sites, which are like if client has a request, then it passes to CDN, then load balancer, then web server, and then DB server. So this kind of a normal process, and it's called a dynamic application. A static one would be very simple, that it would just takes a request. It might, yeah, this block can be CDN or just a server. So that would be coming under a static site. So just to give you an example, so dynamic site would have all of these components when you're building, but a static site would be just a CDN, right? Or just a web server to talk to, right? I think this is just what is that, but what is Jamstack? Let me tell you what it actually helps you with. So this kind of architecture where you don't have multiple components to work with and you just work with CDN. So your front end does nothing but does everything on the CDN, and then CDN has then connections. So the front end developer doesn't need to care about any of the other endpoints or other components. So they only focus on the CDN and the interaction between the client side. So what it actually brings on the table, it actually comes with a faster performance because all your markup is pre-built. So all the pages that you have on your website are actually pre-built and put up on a CDN. So they get served very fast. They are more secure because now you don't have to worry. A front end developer doesn't have to worry about server or database vulnerabilities. They only have to worry about front end part. Then it's less expensive. So if you want to host a static file, they might be cheaper or even free. So services like S3 Bucket or Netlify, these are almost cheap or almost free at one point. Then what else do you get using Jamstack is better developer experience. So they can focus on front end. They don't have to focus on understanding the back end or understanding anything. They just focus on the front end, and they're not tied to any architecture. And as I was saying, that scalability is also one factor. What is so tempting to use? What makes it Jamstack so tempting to use to? Is that if suddenly your website goes viral, the CDN will take care of that. Your app shouldn't. Your app won't. So if you think that all of these factors, you don't have to do them anymore. So to summarize, what it brings on the table is it brings faster performance, more secure, less expensive, better developer experience, and scalability. Currently, all of these factors, developer has to do it by themselves, right? It doesn't come out of the box. For faster performance, you might have to do, a developer might have to do something. For more secure, they have to write more secure code. Expensive, it completely depends how if you use a load balancer on a elastic beanstalk, it might be very expensive. I mean, these are the decisions that has to be taken by developer, but they really don't need to actually. But what Jamstack gives us, it gives a box to the developers, which does all of these things. So I'll come and explain about that box kind of thing later. Let me just give you about what are the benefits Jamstack has for individual developers. So I want to create a quick poll here. So AirMeet gives me a way to ask a poll. So I want to know how many developers are here who are more than 2 years of experience. Okay, it seems like it's 80-20. So 80 people, 80% of the people here are like 2+ experience, and I think almost 10 to 20% people are who are like less than 2 years. So one of the thing is that the lower barrier to entry. You don't actually have to know ton of things to make your application live, or ton of things to put CI/CD into it, or ton of test cases, understanding of like how to run CI/CDs on your servers. You don't actually have to do it. Jamstack does it for you. So one of the benefit is it lowers the barrier to entry. A developer who knows how to write a front end code can actually launch their website, and they can add these CI/CD parts. They can have these test cases running. They can have like actually everything that a website now, a proper website, a mature website has. The second thing is it cuts down tool to number of tools to learn. I mean, I remember when I started, I think the only tool I started using was Gulp. But then later on, they started coming more and more tools, and then every time a new tool would come, I had to read the documentation. I had to spend more time. I had to invest more time to just learn the documentation of these tools. So as I said, that it comes as a box. You don't actually have to do all of those things. And yeah, it provides modern tooling to build web apps. So if you just have a HTML website or just a React website, you can actually include these things. You can actually include modern toolings out of the box. Then what brings Jamstack for teams? So we talked about individual. For teams, what it brings? It actually brings and kind of enforces a more maintainable architecture. I think we all agree that maintaining your application is one of the biggest tasks. And if it's not done correctly, there is 100% chance that when you add a feature, remove a feature, fix a bug, things gonna break. So if you don't have a proper architecture in place, it can be a problem. So what Jamstack does to you and your team is it kind of forcefully follow you these steps. So your website automatically from the Jamstack, it becomes more secured and scalable by itself. So a developer doesn't have to take care. So yeah, and the second point is it enable faster delivery along with the increased security and scalability. So like there was this like conversation I was having earlier. Like a developer actually misses a small configuration in the firewall can have attackers to kind of hack your website or like these kind of small things that can be missed out during the development or creating these kind of architecture can lead to hacking or can lead to your app not working as expected. So Jamstack brings this is like a very good part for any people to adopt, any team to adopt Jamstack. Then for the users, so in the end, we build applications for user. So user have to be very, close part of our architecture, or close part to our things. And so for them, Jamstack sites loads way faster and are more reliable, which makes this place less frustrating for them. I think we all agree that if a user doesn't see anything on the web page for 2 or 3 seconds, they will close your website. So we all understand as a developer, but to reach there, it might take more and more work from you, right? So Jamstack actually reduces that friction and puts these things there. Let me give you examples about Jamstack which are around you and you might not be aware of. Um, I'm sure you would have seen this website a ton of times, React.js documentation. This is completely Jamstack. It runs on over a CDN, it has Markdown, and it just talks with the APIs for the data points. Um, and then Vue.js also is a Jamstack site. It also runs over CDN, and I'm not sure if it uses Netlify, but there's a very high chance that Vue.js, this website uses Netlify for uh, creating this. So later on, while giving the demo, I will give demo with Netlify, so you can actually feel the power of Jamstack then. Then Lodash also uses Jamstack, and there's serverless.com that also uses Jamstack. Till now, I've just covered these static sites, documentation sites, nothing complex. But I'm sure you might have heard about Freecode Camp. Do you know Freecode Camp is completely Jamstack? That is, it completely builds this complete project at once and deploy it on SDN. So any page or any these kind of free code camp exercise that you solve, they actually are pre-rendered and pre-stored, pre-built into CDN, and all of the data that you see comes from the APIs. So Quincy, who's the founder of Free Code Camp, like mentioned this in 2018 Jamstack conference that it's a Free Code Camp is a Jamstack and how they moved to Jamstack. So yeah, and there are many more of these kind of examples that are coming up. So let me talk about how to build a Jamstack app or a web app. So it's a demo time, and I want to give you a demo. But before demo, you should have these things at least. Or these are the things that I had at least before creating this demo. So I have a Git-based version control. I have a static site project. I also have a Netlify account and a little bit knowledge of web development. That's it. To create Netlify account, it's just sign up. It's not paid. It's free of cost. As far as I can remember, it has, I think, 300 minutes of a build time every month. That is free for the free account. Okay. Yeah, let me show you a little bit. So what I've done for the demo part is I have taken some screenshots. So we don't spend more time in setting up these kind of Netlify account and things like that. So I've done that for you already. And I've also created like a basic Jamstack example website, and I've put it on my GitHub. I think I'll share these links to you in a moment in the chat, just or maybe Sana might share. Mm. Yeah, but it again, it's not required. You can follow along with me. So this is like a basic HTML, JavaScript, CSS site. Um, doesn't follow any framework at this point. And the next one is, yeah, this is my Netlify account. As you can see, I'm a very huge fan of Netlify, and I do a lot of projects on Netlify. So yeah, the moment you log in a Netlify, so first you need to have a project, right? You need to have a front end project. The second thing is you log into your Netlify account and you kind of open it up. So this is kind of like a dashboard you see, and you click on new site from Git, right? So when you click on it, it will ask you to pick up that repository or connect with your Git provider. So it supports GitHub, GitLab, and Bitbucket. I'm using GitLab for this example, but other services do not have any drawbacks using. So I click on GitHub, I select my branch, and I select my project as well. And if you see, then I also need to deploy. Like, so currently, what happened is that my site is currently completely static site. That is just HTML, JavaScript, CSS. It doesn't require any build command. Like it doesn't require yarn build or npm build kind of things. So for that part, this is empty. But if your project is React or Vue or any other, you can just put that build command here directly and the publish directory, which is sometimes like slash public slash something or slash dist. These kind of things can happen. But yeah, for the examples, I did that. And that's it. Your website is actually live. So if we visit Nimit hyphen this, let me open that. So yeah, just give me a second. I'll open. So now if you open it up, it's live. Like this is the website which is running on Netlify. And as a developer, I didn't do anything. I just set up and they were like, as you can see, there were like 3 or 4 clicks and your website is live. And this can be changed. So yeah, this can be changed. So let me give you one small example of how do we change anything in these kind of sites, right? Or what is the advantages? I think you can see the advantages yourself when we make that change. So this is a template which I got from templated.co, and yeah, I want to attribute that. So it's not made by me or anything. So yeah, this is a website, and think about me as a developer who wants to add a new option here. So I want to add an option to basically contact us, something like that. So as a developer, I would come here and might go to HTML index.html. To be honest, at this point, I'm also not aware of the code base, but I can quickly check and make those changes. So I want to put something below generic. So I'll edit and add one more li. I think if you have been used to this thing, which I think most of the people are in the talk, then it's quite easy that we just need to add one li to it, right? So let's go up, edit this file in GitHub directly. We can use terminal. We can kind of fork and clone and do all of that. That's okay. But what I'm doing is just going here and searching for generic and kind of adding one more thing, and let's call this contact us, right? And let me put something like contact us dot html or something like that, right? And let me go and kind of commit this and create a new branch and create like that. So adding good commit messages are good. So I think it's kind of a feed. So adding contact us in sidebar and kind of propose the change, right? This is something that we all do, right? So we come here, we check what are the changes. Yeah, it looks right. Let me just create pull request, right? Maybe I can reduce this a little bit. Yeah. So there's something new here, which we don't usually see. One of them is automatically Netlify is doing these build commands. And kind of we don't have a build command at this point, so it went down and it directly created a preview, deployment preview. What deployment preview would mean is that this is your production, right? But this is a PR, and against that PR, it will actually kind of deploy it on a preview branch. So when I click on this detail, it will kind of open up into a new page, new website, which would be deploy preview website. So if you notice, it's almost the same and it's doing it out of the box. We are not doing anything. And if I click on menu, you can see contact us here. So if you see the power of JAMStack is that without a developer setting up these complicated processes, now you have something out of the box there, right? That is one of the benefit. There are multiple benefits for that. And what can I do is, as a reviewer, I can go ahead and maybe I can ask to, what I would do is I would check here, I would click something, do something, and something like that. By the way, it's not just this page, it kind of builds on the whole website, right? So if I can go here, then it kind of builds the whole website. It's not just one page, so this is like a fully functioning app. So let me go ahead and yeah, this looks right to me. It has contact us. Let's go here, merge pull request, confirm it. The moment it's confirmed, if you go back to the main site and you refresh the page, you would see contact us there. And this all happening is uh, without any setup out there for us. It does kind of automatic. So now contact us is here over here. So this might sound very easy. This might sound very little at this point, but think about a very complex site, right? So you are putting CI/CD out of the box, and you have these build tools which kind of checks things much before, right? I think that's gone now. No, I think yeah, yeah. So you have these all of these details. Currently, I did not had any uh, yeah build processes, but it fails, then it shows me all the stack trace and I can check it. So you would understand that maybe in actual production it might also break, so you can fix it right there and things like that. So yeah, that was a short quick demo, and I'm okay to take more questions over that after this. I'm sure there will be many questions. So so yeah, you come here, you make the change, you see this. If you want to see the preview process, you just click on this. It will show you an actual website running with the deploy preview, how it would look. You can check if something is breaking, if something is not working in actual environment. And that's it. Your changes are there, and it kind of builds it. So Jamstack best practices, right? Uh, your entire site should be on a CDN, right? Since anything that you serve on your CDN is nothing but a markup and the assets, right? So it's kind of not that heavy also. and it can be served over a CDN. And that's one of the reason why Netlify or these new services, GCP and AWS also has this. They are giving it almost free because you just have to upload your markup and assets. Then focus on atomic deployments. So did you see that we it actually created like a atomic deploy. So when I added the contact us, it actually created a new deployment. So this is kind of required. One disclaimer: Netlify is like a pioneer in JAMStack, but there are more services which kind of satisfy all these points. So Netlify isn't the only one, but just for the demo, I picked up Netlify. There are more. So yeah, atomic deploys, and it kind of helps in like, so there's a consistent version of the site globally. So you don't have to like have, okay, you don't do deployments irregularly or something like that, because even in deployment there are some stale commits that happens or stale features that are there. So once you deploy them, things might break. I mean, yeah, this kind of things happen in maybe medium architecture applications. So you get a lot of stale commits or stale code in your to be deployed application if you're not following correctly. Instant cache invalidation. Did you notice that when we updated our PR, the CDN actually updated the cache, and when we requested it, didn't give us the previous cache version of the site. It actually updated and gave us the fresh version of it. So we should have instant cache invalidation like that. So if you're building your Jamstack application, make sure you have this thing at least to do that. Yeah, and everything lives on Git. So, like, so the example that I gave was a very, very basic example. You can have documentation in it. You can have more complex application like free code camp. You can even have your blogs written out of it. So at that point, you can actually have like Git can be very beneficial for you because it kind of gives you an audit log, like who changed this markdown file. You can actually always know checking the history of the Git file, and you can check who are the collaborators and who did this. Yeah, and automated builds. So your server should be notified when a new build is required, and server should kind of build the project, update the CDN, and the site should be live. As I mentioned that these things are related to Jamstack. What we saw was given out of the box by Netlify. So if you're trying to build something like Netlify, then your platform should have all of these things. So yeah, coming back, your entire site should be on CDN. You should have atomic deployments. You should have instant cache and validation. Your everything, every data that you see, like a blog post or yeah, any documentation link, anything should live on the Git. And you should have automated builds. Nobody should be there doing manual builds or running something. The moment somebody merges a PR, they can be a webhook that kind of updates or builds this PR, builds these things. We are coming to the end of our talk, which is from here, what can you do next? So I'm sure you might be having your portfolio sites, maybe in WordPress, maybe you hacked PHP to create your own portfolio site, or maybe you just created in React or Vue. So why not move it to Jamstack? Why not just add Netlify and try to do this thing? Or maybe move your personal projects to CDN. Like if you had some front end project, move it to CDN based deployments, right? Your next step can also be use Git based CMS. So I think this idea of Git based CMS is very intriguing. If you haven't used Git based CMS, try it out and check out Netlify CMS. It's my recommended one. So it kind of gives you all the authorization and uh, like so only few people can change your blog and things like that. People can log in and kind of update that. So for you only maintain your blog. You don't have to maintain, people logging in or not or things like that. It can handle that by itself. And you can also try using headless CMS for the backend, like Strappy IO or this Contentful. I think this kind of place is booming now. Like CMSs are moving towards headless. Even WordPress is moving towards headless with few of the plugins. So yeah, I think it's one of the things that as a developer, you should give it a try. And I really enjoyed doing these projects by myself. I think I came across Netlify around 2 or 3 years ago. That time it was very in a nascent stage where the idea wasn't across many places. But then I started doing this, and now I think that almost every site you can think from a Jamstack perspective. So that gives you a real good power. And that's it. Thanks. You can reach out to me at Nimit Bhargava of Twitter. And if you have a question, we can take it right away. And if you don't, you can always reach to me at this and we can discuss. So I would like to end my talk. Yeah.
Okay, it was really a nice talk, Nimit. Thank you so much. And guys, I think some people have already asked question. If like you wanna ask question, you can even raise your hand and you can come here. Meanwhile, I will be sharing a feedback form and our links also wherein you can follow us and you can get to know more about our future webinars. Plus, just take this feedback form, please, so that it would help us to come back with you with, I would say, a more insightful session for the future events and all. So I have shared a feedback form. If you can take it, that would be a really great help for us to host future webinars. And Nimit, I think there already like few people have asked questions. So you can go to the question tab and
Mhm.
you can start answering them, and I'll just move it to the answered one. I think Tejas has asked one question. What
Yeah.
is difference between Jamstack and modern web app, that is SPA plus microservices?
Right. One of the main differences in Jamstack sites are these are pre-built sites. So these are built. So there's a nice saying that bake, not fry. That means that whenever somebody is asking for the content, don't generate it then. Try to bake it before, and don't fry it on the fly. Like for example, if you want to create a website, then you build that website completely before, and you whenever somebody is asking for it, you just give that resource. So one of the major differences is that this is completely built, like you pre-build it, like as I was saying, that analogy, bake but not fry. It's kind of a common analogy that's given with the Jamstack, that you kind of pre-bake it, pre-make it, and then when a client is asking, you just give that resource. So it's kind of very with the efficiency, it's very fast, like because everything is running over CDN. It doesn't have to make any API calls also internally. It just has to fetch from CDN and put it to the client. So that is one of the major difference, and also a difference that puts the SPA part in Microsoft, SPA part in Jamstack difference. Like it's one of the main difference also.
I hope he just got his answer. Next one is Shashank Shekhar. How does SEO comes in the picture for Jamstack website?
Right. It's actually one of the good question. Like when we think about SEO, thinking from Jam perspective, it might not come out of the box. So there are some things that you can try. I think there's isomorphic rendering, and then yeah, I think if you are looking into SEO perspective, maybe server side rendering has a better part in it. But for example, if you're building a dashboard for an admin, maybe that time you don't need SEO, then Jamstack could be a good candidate. But it's still, if you want to like hack things up and try to build all that, so there's this thing called isomorphic rendering that you can look into with the Jamstack.
Okay, right. So Tejas has asked a very big question. Okay, Jamstack M markup, which is HTML, JS, that can be any library or framework, APIs, but these APIs is not third party. If we as a developer is maintaining at in-house, so we need to maintain all stuff, right? Cache, message queue, microservices, DB. I couldn't understand the question. Like if you can check it.
Yeah, I'm checking Page's question. Just give me a second. Yes. So that's the thing. So if you're maintaining APIs can we have to do that. It's when we talk about the front end. Then for the front end, we don't have to maintain caching now, or we don't have to like do a cache invalidation processes by us now. So if you use the Jamstack, the front end becomes more simple to develop. For the back end, yes, we will need these things, I think. Yeah. Let me just take one more look at the question. I couldn't get the exact question. Like, so basically, it just talks about Jamstack and if we as a developer is maintaining it in-house, so we need to maintain all this stuff, right? Yeah, we need to maintain because that comes as a backend part. Backend, we have to resolve do this. But one of the things with Jamstack is that you can make applications. So now you don't need actually a backend to build applications, right? So you have these, a different kind of third-party APIs that you can use. For example, you are building everything in-house, right? So I can see that. Um, Let me give you an example. So you're building a complex application, right? So you want to have specific data types, specific specific schemas, right? How you can do that is there are services just like Jamstack. So as I said that as Netlify, as I said that Netlify is nothing but a concept or an architecture. In the similar architecture, you have things like Contentful or Strappy.io, which gives you similar features like Netlify, but for the backend. So in that case, you don't even have to maintain all of those parts in the backend. I actually presented it more from a front end part, but if you are interested with that, you can actually look up into Contentful or Strappy. There are many more headless CMS. So this comes under headless CMS part. So if you just look for headless CMS, you will get more suggestions, and you can decide. And these things will come out of the box. You don't have to do that at all.
Okay. I hope Tejas you got your answer. If not, you can just raise your hand and you can come here and ask if in case you did not get your answer. Okay, so Prakash has asked, can you tell us more about your workflow?
Sure, I can talk about my workflow. So let me give you an example of a workflow. So I use let me give a hypothetical example and not very specific. So you have a web application with front end and back end using some APIs, right? It can be your own or other APIs. But then whenever you do a front end update, you actually have to go to server, kind of git pull and maybe do something, do some steps. So we avoid that using Netlify. So we connect it like this. Just give me a second. I think I have one of the example also open, so I can just talk about that. So I was thinking of putting this. So whenever somebody is developing, they put everything in version control. And whenever some ER is passed through and moved to the master, there's an automated build that happens. And during that automated build, you have static assets that get generated, and these get pre-rendered, and your previous cache gets invalidated. And then we update the CDN. It's kind of that. I completely use Netlify. You could, like, as I was showing that I had more than 10 plus projects. So I kind of started doing that and forgotten anything that requires me to do something which is not for the development of the application, like which is required. Like, yeah, kind of passing my, these kind of jobs to them, to Netlify to do it.
Okay, awesome. I'm just moving you to answer. Saurav Gehlot has asked multiple APIs with microservices plus frontend JS, rendering plus CDN. Need clarification how things can be totally serverless. There has to be some backend services. Maybe it's minimizing the backend server load as much as possible.
So how you can go totally serverless, or meaning you don't want to have like a server running, you want to change your architecture to serverless. I think I use Laravel a lot, and recently I came across this platform called just give me a second. So that actually kind of creates these microservices which you can host. So my background is I started as a Java developer, But when I started coding professionally, I moved to PHP, and since then I'm coding in PHP for more than 5 years. So yeah, so Laravel, Envoyer, and there's also Envoyer, which kind of helps you with moving your services to microservices or moving to more serverless features. So it also handles your platform to build these. Yep. I'm not sure if I answered more correctly. Maybe you can ask me more, like what is a specific thing that you want totally serverless or something like that. But it kind of depends with which technology you're using. So that can support these kind of, making it totally serverless.
I hope Saurabh got his answer. Okay, I'm moving it to answered. Guna has asked, can we say all CDN based projects are JAMStack?
It depends what you are storing in your CDN. If it's your preloaded website, pre-built website, yes, it is JAMStack. And if you're fetching data from APIs and yeah, I think that would be a JAMStack.
Okay, the same question, I believe. Okay. Chandra has asked, what's your thought about GetSpy? Is it more than JS part in Jamstack?
What's your thought on Gatsby? Is it more than JS part in Jamstack? Gatsby is a very good example that it has a build command which builds your site and you can deploy it statically. So is it more than JS part in Jamstack? No, it kind of fits into the JS part. It gives you anything that, so basically it gives you a markup, right? So it actually, Gatsby actually satisfy your M part, which is the markup. So it gives you a markup that you deploy on a CDN or maybe GitHub sites also for that perspective. So that is there. But for the JavaScript, if something is happening, right? If you click a button and you call a Google Maps API to do something, that can be called as JavaScript.
Okay. Fine. Vineet has asked, can we say SSR is also doing something as Jamstack? Not entirely, but sorry, it can pretty much bake static part of the app, cache it, and send it ASAP when the requirement is made. Okay.
Yeah, it's actually a question that came into my mind as well when I was doing Jamstack. Because as a developer, I don't like to accept things. Like I like to question things, and this was one of the questions that came to me. So the answer I got was that when you want to do SSR, you actually have to create the same route of your client side in your server side, and then it becomes more and more complex. So one of the point is that you have to replicate your routing, the client side routing with your server side routing. So it kind of becomes the same problem that you have to maintain more as a developer. So yeah, which is not needed.
Okay. Shubham Agrawal has asked how to incorporate web app with a backend API service with Netlify.
Um, So you have backend API service and you have front end. So move your front end. So the question is that when you call it API service, so are you talking about a monolith here, or do you have like multi-repo setup? That is, your front end is a separate repository and backend is separate repository. If your front end is separate repository, then you can go ahead and deploy it on Netlify. Like I think if it's just a HTML, JavaScript, Bootstrap, or these kind of services, you can do that. Even if it's React or Vue.js or AngularJS, you just have to write the build command there. Like as I was showing in one of the slides, that you just have to put your build commands there. So yeah, so you can move it. How you can incorporate? So if you have multi-repo, it's kind of easy. You just add that and kind of do that. But if you have a multi-repo setup, I think there are some more checks that you want to do. Like, is there any dependency to routing? Basically, for example, if I want to put Laravel into Netlify, it is not possible. The reason being, Laravel has a templating engine, so which does that. So it uses Blade. In the same way, Python uses another one. So every backend technology uses another. But if you're just talking about APIs, then you don't need. Yeah, you can go ahead. But complexity comes when you have kind of monolith kind of structure where you use templating.
Okay. So I think Tejas again has asked, what about NFRs for Jamstack, and how and where can we have a logs, performance, mentoring, etc.
Might need little more things. I'm really not sure about NFR, and so maybe a more question. Oh, I see. How and where can we have our logs and performance monitoring? Yeah, we can have it in the dashboard. Maybe I can show. Just give me a second. Let me pull up my Netlify dashboard. So this is my Netlify dashboard, and you wanted to check the performance and things like that, right? So this is if I have a paid version, then I can have more and more analytics to it, like if it's a paid project. But if it's not, it still gives me some part. So yeah, I think it, as I was mentioning, you have to be paid for this one. Like this project has to be paid, which adds $9. And just a moment, I'll reconfirm the question, which is where can I have our logs? Okay, so logs, we can find them in deploys. So under deploys, you have each deployment. So if you remember that we had at 4:36, almost 20 minutes ago, we made a deployment. So you can see the log. But if something breaks down, it kind of gives that log as well. So it gives you log about how the build was started and site is live and this things like that. I hope these were the logs that you were asking for.
So yeah, Prakash has asked, what are the tools you use to measure the performance of your Jamstack site?
What are the tools I use? Oh, so the tools I can use are the Lighthouse. Like there's nothing a better, there's no better tool than Lighthouse to check for the performance of any front end website. So Lighthouse, I'm sure you're aware. If you're not, let me put it into, yeah, into the chat. Or maybe if I can answer. No, I can't answer. I have to put it in the chat.
Yeah, you can put in chat.
Yeah.
Okay. Then could you explain what is Git based and handless CMS?
Headless
Headless
CMS.
CMS, sorry.
Right. It's a very interesting concept. So Git-based CMS means that. So let's take an example, right? Let's take WordPress as an example. So I want to tell you what is the architecture of WordPress. So WordPress has few components. One of them is server, then PHP, and then there is MySQL database, right? That's the normal flow. So if you create a post like a blog post in WordPress, so it would create a blog post in the database, right? That's how it is. But in Git based, what happens is it actually creates as a markdown. So in your markdown file, you can actually create this post like that. So instead of using an actual database, you kind of use the markdown, and it kind of adds into like anything that you make change, it has to be done from Git. So that is one of the idea. So that is for the Git based. And for headless CMS, it kind of gives you everything what a CMS gives. But what it gives you is that it gives you the APIs to contact with. So you can use the front end. You can use these APIs in the front end, the headless CMS APIs, which is like an actual full-fledged CMS that you can try.
Is Jam good for e-commerce, banking, and high traction based applications?
So Jamstack is maybe not the best for the e-commerce because sometimes you need to take care of SEO and you want like your crawlers to crawl every time. But I think the modern crawler has solved that problem. But at this point, I don't vouch that you create your e-commerce with Jam. I think it requires more and more understanding. But taking care of scalability, yes, it can do it, but I'm not sure about the SEO part. For the banking and high transaction applications, so banking, yeah, you can go ahead and use Jamstack. It's safe and secure like that. So your safety and security should be in the backend as well. So yeah, but it takes care of all of the parts, all of the possible issues that can happen in the front end, Jamstack. For high transaction based application, yeah, why not? Because it's served over as CDN, so it kind of supports all of this. But for e-commerce, I'm not sure. I think there has to be some research done, but there has to be there would be a way for that.
Okay. So this is the last question. Performance wise, we can okay, can be it's good for banking e-commerce solution. Okay, I think he has answered the last question.
Yeah. So yeah, performance-wise, we can say it's good, but in the end, it depends how you build your backend API, right? If your backend APIs are slow, you will not show anything to the data. But if you're doing everything right, like everything mediocre, averagely right in your backend, then your front end doesn't have a problem or an issue.
Okay. Anyone else having any question you can ask? Like we'll just wait for 2-3 more minutes. Then, if you have any question, you can ask. Otherwise, we can move on then.
Right.
So, guys, thank you so much for joining us here. I have shared a feedback form. It would be really great if you can fill that form. It will help us to understand how it was and help us to come back with a better session, better events, and let me know what else you would like to have from us, like to come back with few topics. I have mentioned one field there, like what topics you want in the future webinar. That would be really great help for us to come back with you with some better session. And thank you so much for taking time out of your weekend. And thank you so much, Nimit. It was a really great learning for all of us. See you then. Bye bye, guys.
Thank you so much. Thanks again, Sanam, and the community. I think, yeah, having more JAMStack these kind of discussions actually spark a lot of questions. And Bangalore and I think India being one of the upcoming developing place, I think we should have more such, discussion on these things. In case you still have any issues or anything that you want to discuss, I'm available. Like you can contact me in this Twitter account. So
Yeah.
my DMs are open, so you can always contact me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Bye bye.
All right. Bye.